Hey guys, welcome to the Touchdown Table. I'm Ryan, that's Tyler, that's Jordan. And this video is another edition of our offseason outlook series. We've been doing a lot of those, having a lot of great discussions about some teams' outlook for the draft and free agency and how they will try and shape up their odds for success in 2021 and beyond. And today we're going to do just that and discuss all those topics I just mentioned and maybe more about the Cincinnati Bengals. So who'd like to start us off?
There's a lot we could start with because there's a lot that needs to be fixed. This was the team that was picking number one overall just 2 years ago, and now they're picking fifth overall. But they got the start of their team together with Joe Burrow. We're going to be talking about it and hitting on it constantly. This offensive line has to be good for him. I think that's a good place to start. I'll talk about it in my segment later on where I say what this team should specifically do over the offseason. There's a lot to do offensively. They got some wide receivers. They could get another running back in there, some holes defensively as well. So there's plenty that they can do. But it all starts with the quarterback and the offensive line, and I think that's where we should start this video. I mean, you just look back to last year, and I know the Bengals weren't going to do very much, but what's the one thing that really just cut down that whole season? That was Joe Burrow getting injured. Once he was gone, it's kind of mean to say, but that team, they were virtually nothing, although they did go out there and they did win some games without Burrow. So
They beat my team without
they
Burrow.
did. So shout out to the Bengals for that. You still fought hard. So I guess you weren't virtually nothing. You still have some pieces there to build upon, but it's still the saying what I said before. It's true that Joe Burrow is really going to be the heart of this team. You need to keep him protected. And that line, let's just not sugarcoat it. It was really bad last year. He was constantly under duress, very similar to what happened in Philadelphia with Carson Wentz, except Carson Wentz didn't get injured like other years that he has. So you need to keep Joe Burrow safe. This guy is your franchise quarterback. Get a offensive lineman, please. Whether it's out of the draft, which you should do, and whether it's in free agency, which you might also want to do because it really needs help. Although they have some young pieces that might be doing some stuff. Billy Price, Jonah Williams, two of those guys. But go and help Joe Burrow. First and foremost, this offseason, offensive line is number one, zero question.
Yeah, I think part of what made Joe Burrow so great at LSU is that he had a lot of time to throw the ball and he was able to scan the field, find his best option, and he was so good at making those decisions. And by no means was he bad in Cincinnati. Had he played the full year, he would have been in the Offensive Rookie of the Year discussion, right up there with Justin Herbert and Justin Jefferson. So I believe in Joe Burrow. I mean, I think I'm seeing like 2020 mock redrafts with Herbert going one. I think it's way too early to even talk about stuff like that just because these guys are so young in their careers and Burrow literally hasn't played a full year yet. So I agree, and I think that almost everyone in the NFL world should agree that priority number one has to be protecting this offensive line. They're picking fifth overall, so that could potentially be Penei Sewell range. Maybe if he's gone, Rashawn Slater from Northwestern, or maybe a trade down if they feel like that would be a reach. But there are other guys in free agency, which if they don't want to feel pressured to necessarily draft a lineman at five, they can try and sign, one or multiple of people like Brandon Sheriff, Joe Thuney, Trent Williams, just to name a few. There's also some other ones. Russell Okung, Alex Mack. Lot of quality veteran free agent offensive linemen that they could go after one or multiple of those guys. But I think they also do want to get younger at the position as well. But no question, number one need for the Bengals, not only to protect Joe Burrow, but just also to really open up their whole offense, allow everyone on there to be as good as they can be, fix the O-line. And they know they have to do that, and I think everyone knows they have to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's jump to the skill position, and this one's kind of interesting because one of the guys that has been on this team for a long time is set to be a free agent this year. He's been really banged up, and that's AJ Green. So the question is, what are they going to do with AJ Green? They could try to sign him back because I think I said he's a free agent, or they could let him go, maybe bring somebody else in. They have Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins right now. I like those two. I think they're decent wide receivers right now. I think they could use maybe a true number one, but I think that T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd could both form themselves into a number one with time. But if they choose to let AJ Green go, then maybe they bring someone in to fill that void, or who knows, maybe they decide to sign AJ Green again. But honestly, I don't see that happening. Just me personally, I see them letting him go. Yeah, I would agree with you, and that means, like you said, either through the free agency or the draft. We're going to talk about it. I think both are good options. There's good receivers out there in free agency, but also a lot of late round receivers that they could possibly go after that could end up being very good. Like we saw in last year's draft, every year we see a receiver come out later in the draft and be one of the best rookie wide receivers. So they have a chance to do that, and I think they should take it if they do have that chance. So take it.
Yeah.
And let's jump to the running back position real quick. So last year, Joe Mixon was injured for a long portion of the season. Then Giovanni Bernard and Samaje Perine stepped up in some roles. I had Giovanni Bernard on my fantasy team for a few weeks. He scored 2 touchdowns in 1 week, I think. Joe Burrow threw him a touchdown. So thanks, Joe, and thanks, Giovanni. But Giovanni Bernard is getting up there in age. I think Perine is as well. And Joe Mixon, he had his injuries last year, but there are still many people around the NFL, and I'm sure around the Bengals, that believe in Joe Mixon, that he could be a number one running back in this league. I remember in fantasy, I was hesitant to pick him, but there was a lot of people ranking up there with some of those number one guys because he has that potential to come out and be a number one guy. He just has not had that season yet. So I think if you're the Bengals, maybe go out and get yourself some help at the backup running back. Still trust in Joe Mixon, but go get somebody else just in case he goes down or he doesn't play the way you want him to.
Yeah, I think Joe Mixon's their guy in the backfield. I really do. I mean, I think that, even if, maybe there's a better option out there, Joe Mixon, honestly, he could definitely, be in that, top 10 running back conversation again if he plays a full season. I think absolutely. And if they get the offensive line better, that's only going to help Joe Mixon opening up that run game. Although, when you think of the O line, the primary issue you think of is protecting Burrow. It also will have benefits to other parts of the offense if you upgrade that O line. As, you look at the best offenses, odds are they have pretty good O lines that allow everything to go to its full potential on those great offenses. So I don't think running back is much of an issue. I think the Bengals are happy. They're happy at quarterback. They're happy at running back. Receiver, I mean, we'll see what they do with AJ Green. I expect him to leave. Will they draft a young guy in the middle rounds? Will they sign someone in free agency? Because as we mentioned in a lot of these offseason outlooks, the free agency class for wide receivers is pretty deep this year, and there's some good veteran guys that could certainly contribute, help a young quarterback like Burrow, help this offense continue to take steps forward. Tight end, I mean, CJ Ozuma is not terrible. Neither is Drew Sample, but they certainly could use an upgrade there depending on who they could get. And we mentioned the O-line is a problem, and they need to get talent there, whether it be veteran talent or young talent, or ideally a mix of both.
Yeah, and as we have so lovingly said so many times, that the main problem for this Bengals team is their offensive line. But secondly, I'd say it's almost their entire defense, right? And I'm not trying to take a shot at them or anything.
There's some names in here
there
that
are
I
some
really
names
like.
that are okay, but most of them are getting up there in age, right? So I feel like you want to get some of the younger guys into this defense, get a younger culture going. There's guys like Geno Atkins who have been here for a long time. Not saying he's a bad player, but his time is going to come in the NFL soon. So you want to get some younger blood in there, some better players in some positions. I feel like there's some upgrades that definitely could happen with the Bengals. Ryan, you talked about how the Bengals beat your Texans last year. What was the score of that game?
37-31.
Very high scoring. So the Bengals defense, obviously Deshaun Watson, the Texan, can do some good things. Let's see if Watson stays with the Texans. That's something they continue to watch through this offseason. But that just goes to show that, yes, the Bengals could use some help all across that defensive side. Yeah, and I'm going to once again address that defense. But there's so many things to focus on right now. I think, as we mentioned, going back to the top of the video, you gotta just focus on the focal point of every single team, and that's the quarterback and the people blocking for the quarterback. We've mentioned it so many times, but it is the most important part of it. So if I'm the Bengals, I'm saying, all right, we'll maybe go and sign some lower tier free agents on defense and draft some cornerbacks and safeties. Possibly, I have a couple written down once we get to my tips section. But obviously, that is the main point. You guys keep going a little more as I touch up this last part of my Tyler's tips, and then we can get into the segment.
All right, yeah, we'll get to that segment in a second. But when I look at this defense, like I said earlier, it's not great, but I do see some names that I like. Just looking, we'll start from the front and then work our way back. You look at the D line. I mean, DJ Reader is a guy that I like, good run stopper. He's more of a younger guy. Blend him with Geno Atkins, who's a veteran. Carl Lawson is one of their edges, as is Sam Hubbard. I believe Lawson's set to hit free agency. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he is Carl Lawson, right? I think he's going to be a free agent. I'll double check that in a second, but we'll see what they do there. At the linebacker position, they do have some promising young guys that they drafted in the past few drafts. But when I look at their secondary, this is interesting because their free safety, Jesse Bates, really did have a great year. Von Bell, also a solid addition that they got from a year ago from New Orleans via free agency a year ago. And William Jackson, that's a big name to mention because he was no doubt their best corner, but he is set to be a free agent as well. So again, we'll see what they do with him. Do they bring him back? But if not, that void in the secondary gets even bigger for a defense that has some promise, but is a long way from being a complete elite unit.
Yes, definitely. So do you guys want to just get right into the tip section, or should we? You guys want to mention any last thoughts before I officially get into it. I'm sure we'll have some things to say after your segment, but yeah, let's get into it. Okay, well, I haven't got everything perfected down to a T yet, but we'll start where we started the video. I think that's a phrase. I hope it is. But you got to draft Penei Sewell if he's there. That's an obvious one. I think if they were to pass up on him while he's on the board, it would be very strange unless we saw a very good player still there. But I think Sewell will be taken by them if he's there for sure. And then also in the draft, continue to address the offensive line. Who cares if you have overloaded on them? Get as many as you can because it was not good. You can never have too many offensive linemen. I guess you could, but anyways, I wrote down Alex Leatherwood and Deontay Brown, 2 Alabama players. Just 6 examples of guys that they could maybe go out and get in the later rounds. And then in the draft, I said you got to also address the wide receiver position at some point since they probably are going to let A.J. Green go. Also something I should mention now. Let A.J. Green walk. Maybe get Tylan Wallace or Terrace Marshall. Ryan came up with that one. That sounded like a good idea, so I wrote it down. And then I also said you might want to get just a mild veteran. I mean, not someone very, very up high in the rankings, but maybe Russell Okun. I think you mentioned earlier on in the video. He would be a good fit there. It's not a huge signing, but someone that can get these other young linemen ready to go, kind of be a mentor of some sort. And then also there's some free agent wide receivers I'm throwing out there as well as we stay with the wide receiver. Juju Smith-Schuster, Corey Davis, Marvin Jones Jr. I don't think they're going to get those top guys like Allen Robinson or Chris Godwin if he decides to leave.
I don't think Juju's staying in the division.
Yeah,
or going to the Bengals.
I saw something
Yeah,
today that said, or at the day we're filming this, that said Marvin Jones wanted to chase a Super Bowl in free agency. So no offense, Bengals fans, but I don't think that signals he's going to Cincinnati.
Maybe Corey Davis. I don't know if Juju would go there. I mean, after his trauma, after getting nailed by the Bengals in that game.
Be kind of funny, though.
Yeah, I know it would be, wouldn't it? And then in free agency, we're talking about the defense. I think you got to address that as well. Brian Poole, Quentin Dunbar would be a nice one. And then going back to the draft, those were both cornerbacks, I believe, because they got to get that secondary. And then Tyson Campbell and Paul Debo are later round guys that could be there for you. Paris Ford, a safety they could also go out and get. And then replacing Carlos Dunlap is going to be important because they traded him away last year. Guys that could possibly do that. Once again, lower tier free agents. Bud Dupree and Shelby Harris. Both guys that are well-known names, but definitely not high up on the household names where they could probably go out and get one of those 2 guys if they wanted to. You talked about the running back position. I said maybe get one later rounds or undrafted. Maybe like a James Robinson type thing.
I was just thinking of him because you never know.
Yeah, and you see what happens because I do think they're going to stick with Joe Mixon. Ryan, you mentioned that. That sounds good. At the linebacker position, I think they are all right. They got a young linebacker last year who I liked. I'm blanking on his name. I'll find it for you in a second.
Was it Logan Wilson?
It was Logan Wilson, yes. Out of Wyoming, he was a guy that I liked a lot. I think he'll start to get more playing time. But the linebacker position is not
He's a starter right now.
Yeah. I think he became one more towards the end of the season. Bengals fans, let me know. Do you guys like him or not? But that's what I got to say about the Bengals. Anything to add? Anything you thought I did wrong? Rest of the table?
I actually have something that you did right. So I looked up if down to a T is a phrase, and apparently it is. So it says, if you have an activity or skill down to a T, you have succeeded in doing it exactly right. So you said you had not had it down to a T, but after that segment, it went pretty well. So I'd say you did have it down to a T.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That's very sweet of you. Yeah. Ryan, what do you think?
Well, I really do agree with a lot of what you said there. I think that, you hit on a lot of positions of need for the Bengals and that, you really had a lot of great points, but something that I did want to just clarify, I mentioned I wasn't sure if Carl Lawson was going to be a free agent. I thought he would be. I just have to clarify. I've checked. He is set to be a unrestricted free agent. So another thing, we'll see if the Bengals, I think you mentioned the edge rusher position, with having to replace Dunlap, will they have to replace him also if he leaves as well? So several big names to watch on defense like Carl Lawson and William Jackson to see if they leave, and if they do, that void gets even bigger.
Yeah, I don't think we've mentioned T. Higgins at all, have we?
No, I did, but briefly.
Yeah, briefly. I think it's more than a brief thing that should be mentioned because he might end up being the veteran if AJ Green leaves. I know they have older guys.
Yeah.
Erickson, I think he's still gonna be there. I mean, he's not that good, but
hey, Auden Tate
Tyler
is good
Boyd.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Tyler Boyd would be the veteran.
Yep. So there's definitely guys there, but they need someone to sprout into that huge one. I think that could be T. Higgins or
other wide receivers that they might want to draft. But the reality of it is right now, the Bengals, they have a lot of needs, and they're just not going to be able to fill every single one over the offseason because there's so many. You can try as much as you want. I threw in a bunch of names just to give examples. I'm sure some of these players will end up going back to their original teams and it won't matter. Those are just examples I'm throwing out there. There's a lot for this team to do over the offseason. But once again, I think this is another franchise that's looking in the right direction. We say this a lot, but there are teams that are looking in the downward direction. Hint, hint, your Texans.
Yep.
But with the Bengals, it's a team that I'm not saying, okay, this team's going to be really good next year. But a couple years down the road, we say, okay, Joe Burrow, now he's got this line, got some wide receivers. The defense is at least formidable or average middle of the pack of the league.
Yeah.
This team has a chance to be dangerous like they were just a couple of years ago with Andy Dalton. Hopefully they can win a playoff game.
Yeah, and I mean, you kind of mentioned, the outlook of them getting better and, the future of this team. I really feel that this year, provided, everything goes roughly as planned, I feel like this year is really the first time we can fully evaluate Zach Taylor as a head coach. Because the first year he was there, they were just bad. There was no talent. They, I think they didn't even win a game for like half the year. It took them a while. They ended up going 2-14. And this year, Burrow gets hurt. So I really feel like we really haven't been able to see, Zach Taylor with a, legit enough team and with, a solid enough answer at the quarterback position for a full season to really evaluate him. Because record-wise, it hasn't been great, but because of the situation that Bengals roster has been in talent-wise and health-wise, I think this year is honestly the first year we'll really be able to honestly and fully evaluate their coach, Zach Taylor, as a head coach, even though it is going to be his third year.
Yeah, and that brings up an interesting point for Bengals fans right now. If you're still here, go down in the comment section. Let us know what you think about Zach Taylor because, Ryan, you're right. You can't really fairly judge him because there's been nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was kind of just signed because he talked to Sean McVay. It was kind of a joke when he did get hired. But he's definitely got a chance to do great things, especially with Burrow. And if they can get this team right or bring it in the right direction, he does have a chance to prove himself. But there's also a chance that he could be gone by next year if things don't go well.
If it doesn't get any better, then I think there's that argument. Because, if you get a healthy Burrow and a better line, then, he doesn't really have an excuse like he did these past 2 years.
Okay, so I think that's where we're going to end this one. Any last thoughts before the video gets wrapped up? Jordan, you always have something to say at the end.
He usually does.
Well, you asked for it. So before this video, we were playing a game that we made up.
I made up.
And it's kind of like we were using poker chips. We weren't gambling or anything, but
it
was with a similar thing. So Tyler was coming up with hints for teams, and we put in our poker chips and bet on how much we think we knew the answer to it, and then whoever won all the chips at the end won it. Hint, hint. That was me. It took a long time. It was like 2.5 hours though. But one of the hints was Ben Siegel. We got down to, and I was thinking to myself, okay, and it's Ben Goal. Who is Ben Goal? I looked up Ben Goal twice, and I couldn't get it. And then I finally just said out loud, Tyler, who is Ben Goal? And I was like, oh my God, it's Bengals. So he asked me to talk. I talked to you. That's how this thing goes. It was the Bengals. Now we're doing a video.
Yep, that's how it happened.
Cincinnati Bengals. That's why we're sitting where we are right now doing this video on the Cincinnati Bengals. You're welcome, Bengals.
In case you were desperately laying in your bed or sitting in your chair or on your computer wondering why we're making a Bengals offseason outlook right now,
at 12:19
that's the story. That is the story. So thank you, Jordan, for filling us in on that. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you did like this video, I know you guys are making fun of me for saying this, but if you like this video, show us your love, like the video, and go subscribe and comment down below. Let us know. We love these off-season outlook videos. Saved myself there. Off-season outlook videos because you guys give us so much information about your team and input from a fan perspective and an outside perspective. We love the conversation. So go down and comment. Everyone say comment. Comment.
He's not going to say it because you told him to say it.
That's true. That's a good point. But yeah, go comment down below, like this video, subscribe to our channel, hit the notification bell so you can be notified every time a new video gets posted from us. Go check out our podcast where we're going to be talking off-season stuff all the time. And our Instagram, we'll post about off-season stuff. Once we get to the draft and free agency, we'll post about that. So go check that out to stay up to date with us as much as possible. Thank you guys for watching this video. Thank you for staying until the end if you are here. With that, we will see you guys later.
See ya.